Good afternoon. Be generous, be grateful, be kind, and take everyone you meet to their best place. This was Robin's personal statement, his mission statement, and the principles by which he lived his life. He was all about giving and becoming a light for as many people as he could. He was generous in so many ways. He was grateful for his opportunities, his friends, his colleagues. And he practiced daily gratitude each morning and showed kindness to so many people through his actions, both seen and unseen. Rob loved teaching, lecturing, presenting, and did so with commitment, enthusiasm, and true passion. He believed in a very high work ethic and the art of truly serving. His words were, "Commit deeply to displaying a passion for your service responsibility." Rob and I first met 26 years ago and reconnected only early last year. We fell deeply in love in a whirlwind fairy tale romance and were inseparable, becoming engaged within a few weeks and planned to get married at his favorite place in Mauritius last Christmas and spend the rest of our lives, finally, as true soulmates. Sadly, over the past year, he had several admissions for atrial fibrillation, PE, and COVID. And although he seemed to be improving recently, he passed away at home in my arms of a cardiac event. Many of you here today knew Rob professionally, but outside of work, he loved watching and playing golf, was passionate about nature, had an astonishing knowledge of birds, and finally fulfilled his lifelong dream of seeing a Pell's fishing owl when we went to Kruger Park for his 60th last year. He cared deeply for his team here at Steve Biko, his medical students, his friends, colleagues, his dogs and cats, and always went the extra mile to assist anybody with humility and kindness. A gentle giant. It would have been really comforting to Rob today that we come together to celebrate, not mourn, rejoice, not grieve, and to share our memories of this incredible man. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the Faculty of Health Sciences for hosting this celebration, a very fitting venue to remember Rob, who gave so much to Steve Biko and the University of Pretoria, and especially to Corinne Dupria and her team for all the arrangements. To the speakers from whom you will hear the reflections, to all those of you who've sent such kind messages of condolences over the past few weeks. To Rob's good friends, Clinton, Charles, Gavin, who are here today, my daughter Jessica, all of whom have been so supportive over the past few weeks. To all of you in person here, or online at Steve Biko or around the world, thank you so much for joining and generously giving of your time today as we celebrate Rob's life. I hope that you all leave here today remembering good memories, what he meant to you, and the legacy that he indeed left behind. In one of his books that he wrote, A Life More Extraordinary, Rob wrote, "Your legacy will be all you hope people remember you by. You may not have a street named after you, but if you got people to a better place in their lives, they will remember you and talk fondly of you." His was a life truly worth living, and I welcome you to the celebration of Rob's life today. Thank you.
As we know that Professor Green was a lot of things in this School of Medicine and the Faculty of Health Sciences, but he was first and foremost a pediatrician. So I would like to welcome Professor Izel Smarts to please come to the podium and share a few words.
slides. Good afternoon, colleagues and friends. Today we are together to celebrate the life of Robin John Green, and I have the pleasure to represent not only our department, but also the wider pediatrics community from South Africa. It is during times like these that you discover the loyalty of colleagues and friends. Thank you for all the messages and memoirs sent to us, and I took the liberty to base this address on memoirs I collected from his friends and colleagues all over the world. He was a pediatric leader in so many ways. He was guiding the department as Director of Pediatric Services at Steve Biko since 2009. He was the head of our School of Medicine since 2018. He was a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians. He was a fellow of the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology, as well as the American College of Chest Physicians. And he was the past president of the College of Pediatricians of South Africa, as well as the immediate past president of the Allergy Society of South Africa. And the National Research Foundation of South Africa rated him as an established researcher specializing in pediatric pulmonology. I had to write all these things down because to memorize them is quite a task. We respect all these leadership positions. However, as colleagues and students, we will remember him as the exceptional man and gentle giant because his philosophy was be generous, be kind, be grateful, and always remember, attitude matters. His heart was in the work he was doing. He never wasted time with non-beneficial matters. It was if he knew that he did not have time. And those were the words of his secretary. What a selfless person he was. He made so many wonderful and generous contributions to our community and the families we serve. He always acknowledged the team that worked with him, and everybody will fondly remember the care packages in the dark times of COVID that he sent to everybody. And not only to our department, but also to staff members in other departments working on the front lines. These qualities made him an exceptional pediatrician, academic, mentor, colleague, and friend. We know him as Dr. Green, the pediatrician, Prof. Green, the academic, and Robin as mentor and friend. But first and foremost, Dr. Green was the pediatrician and pediatric pulmonologist. He was a clinician at heart. We all admired his dedication to the plight of all children in our country. He was an advocate of better health for all children. He also said that, he was an advocate for access to pediatric training, and we saw how he was part of the collective that made sure that the education of pediatricians in this country was of a very high quality and standard. He was able to do this because he was Professor Green, the academic. He was a full professor. He was a highly intelligent man with 2 doctorals. He had a PhD as well as a DSc. And he was well known for his contribution in the field of asthma, allergies, and establishing pediatric allergy as a sub-discipline in South Africa. Something that was of great interest to him was the interaction between the atopy, or between atopy and HIV, and the combined impact on pediatric pulmonary disease. He had 160 peer-reviewed scientific publications, edited 5 books, including Cuvadia's Pediatrics and Child Health, 10 chapters, 300 international and international lectures, and he served on the editorial board of Infectious Diseases and the African Journal of Thoracic and Critical Care Medicine. As mentor, we know him very well. Robin, he was a huge figure in pediatrics and will be remembered as a good teacher and leader. One of his people that he met early in their careers wrote the following: I first met him when I was a senior registrar, keen on a career in pediatrics in 1993. I think he was about to finish his training and had, of course, sailed through his exams. He terrified me by his high standards, intimidated me by his vast knowledge. Yet, he was so gentle with his patients, serious but gentle. He always showed an interest in my journey. I will be forever grateful to Rob for setting such a good example so early in my career. And so many of the people that went through his unit and trained here will also say, I am so grateful for the interest he showed in my journey. Robin nurtured pediatric pulmonology from its infancy and inspired so many other people, not only pulmonology. He was such a great teacher, kind and caring doctor, always wanted the best for his students, colleagues, and his good friends. He played such a huge and positive role in so many people's lives. His encouragement and wisdom will be missed. His pearls and tiny tips will always be cherished. It was so special to experience how many people express themselves in their condolences and express their gratitude for knowing him. It can be summarized as, we will miss Robin greatly. We'll miss you, buddy. May his kind and gentle soul rest in eternal peace. May all of us cherish the wonderful memories of this amazing academic, friend and mentor. His achievements will live forever. Thank you very much for each and every one of you spending the time with us today, in person or virtually. And thank you also for all the memoirs that you shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Izelsmats. Today we are meeting, but Professor Tiaan Diaga, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, is unfortunately unable to be with us today. But now I'm also going to give you a few words as the acting head of school of the School of Medicine, a position which I did not accept easily because I was always hoping that Prof was going to come back. So, my name is Mandisa Kakaza. I'm representing the School of Medicine, the Executive Committee of the School of Medicine. I would like to acknowledge Ms. Nell and say thank you to her for allowing us to meet here today like this. Thank you very much. And I have already acknowledged all the people who are joining us today as a school. And I would like to say that a great tree has fallen. It might sound like a cliche, but a great tree has fallen. A pillar of the Department of Pediatrics has fallen. A pillar of the School of Medicine has fallen. A pillar of the Executive Committee of the School of Medicine has fallen. A pillar of the faculty has fallen. And he was in all these positions within the school. Okay. And of course, the university at large is also going to miss him. When I was thinking about Professor Green, because I met him when I also joined the executive committee, and he was there for a long time. When I met him, the following words, when I heard of his passing, let me put it like that. When I heard of his passing, I thought of a verse from the good book, from one of the good books. And the verse reads like this: "No one lights a lamp and puts it in a cellar or under a basket. Instead, he sets it on a stand so that who enter can see the light." And if you read that and you go 3 verses down, it says, "So if your whole body is full of light, with no part of it in darkness, you will be radiant, as though a lamp were shining on you." So I will say that again. So if your whole body is full of light, with no part of it in darkness, you will be radiant as though a lamp were shining on you. So these are the words that immediately came to mind when I heard of the news of Prof's passing. And I think that these are the words that have also made all of you to brave this winter day, to come here on a Friday afternoon to pay your respects, to celebrate the life of Professor Green. Okay. He has left us prematurely, as you have heard. He was only born in 1961, so he was very young. We were expecting him to guide us for much longer. We did not expect him to leave us like this so early in his life. Professor Green has served in many committees in this School of Medicine. For the longest of times, he has been a member of the School of Medicine EXCO, as I have said. When Professor Lindeke retired, Professor Green took up the mantle and became the head of the School of Medicine. His ascension to the helm as the head of school coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic. He took up the challenge. He allowed the school to sail smoothly through these choppy waters of the pandemic. He was able to quickly guide us to transition from face-to-face lectures to a situation where all the lecture rooms were closed with immediate effect. We all know those words. And before we could even wipe our eyes, all the students had laptops, all the students had data provided by the School of Medicine. Very few days were lost, and learning continued through the hard lockdown up until now. We managed to have graduation ceremonies with no years lost of learning during his time. We had regular meetings where he updated all the heads of departments about what was going on, how we were supposed to sail through this pandemic. And as he was guiding us, none of us had any idea of the amount of organization it took to run the school through this pandemic, because he made it look very easy. Okay. All we had to do was to continue with our work as clinicians and as teachers. As a teacher, you've already heard, he was very loved by his students. Quite recently, the fifth-year students were celebrating their last day of lectures. They were very excited. And they were insistent that they wanted Professor Green to be with them. It was quite, unfortunately at a time when he was not well, so he was not able to join them, and they were actually quite disappointed. My presence there did not make up for Prof. Green's absence. Okay. As a researcher, you've already heard from Prof. Izel, who knows him very well. They've worked together for many, many years. As a researcher, he has achieved a lot. You've already heard he achieved a DSc and a PhD as well. He got the PhD in 2003 and the DSc in 2013. He supervised 2 PhD students. He had multiple MEd students that he supervised. He had, I know these numbers are probably out of date because they have not been updated probably for a while, because these numbers are when he was applying for something. And at that time already, he had 18 non-peer-reviewed articles, and at that time, he had 126 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Okay, so this is quite an achievement. And as I said, these figures might actually be out of date. He was involved, as you have heard, in a number of books. We all, even as students, I don't want to tell you how old I am, but even as students, we all read Kuvadia, and he was also involved in that book. Okay. He was also the editor of 2 books, and as I'm going to say again, because these words to me have quite a profound meaning. So if your whole body is full of light, with no part of it in darkness, you will be radiant as though a lamp were shining on you. And when the lamp shines, you're not forever shining it. It just shines and people see it shining, okay? You're not always looking out to shine this lamp. It is unfortunate that it is only when something is lost or someone is gone that we realize their value, what they mean to us. Sometimes it is only when we are cast into darkness that we realize that there was light and how intense the light was. We start looking for the source of the light, but it is often too late. So, what therefore is the message we should be taking today? I was told by my parents that every time you go to a wedding or even a funeral, you must go home with a message. So I'm going to give you a message today. What therefore is the message of those of us who are left behind in the School of Medicine? We should strive to light our own lights as he did. That's one. We must strive to light our own lights as Professor Green did. Number 2, we should lift others as we rise by casting our own light upon them, as he did. We are now to continue from where Professor Green left. We cannot allow the publications of the school and the faculty to go down because he is gone. He would not appreciate that. We cannot allow the teaching in the school to deteriorate because he would also not appreciate that. We have to continue to give our students all the support we can give them because that is what he would actually appreciate. Thank you. That is the end of my speech. I am now going to introduce to you Professor, are you coming first, Prof? I thought it was Dr. Matebula first. Yeah, okay. Yes, I will introduce Dr. Matebula. Dr. Matebula is the CEO of Steve Biko Academic Hospital. That is the main hospital that we use for teaching. But Dr. Matebula is also the chair of all the cluster of hospitals that we use to teach our students. So we are always happy when she joins us. Please take the podium, Dr. Matebula.
Thank you very much, Professor Kakaza. Good afternoon, colleagues. Special greetings to the family, Prof. Green's family, the colleagues, the faculty, and the School of Medicine. Yeah, it is a difficult one. Like it has been highlighted, Professor Green was a joint appointee of the University of Pretoria and the Gauteng Department of Health, and was one of the senior appointees, and therefore, because of his expertise, was advising even at national level, National Department of Health and the Gauteng Department of Health. But he's somebody that you know, when I learned of his ill health in the past year, I felt weakened, but because of his ability to administrate, to run as a manager, yes, it is difficult not to have your manager with you. But if you have a person of Prof. Green's caliber who had a well-run department, it didn't feel as though he's not there, because immediately people like Professor Smarts, whom we pushed to the corner together with the Dean, Professor Diacher, just settled in as though nothing is happening. Yes, we had hope that Prof. Green will come back and continue where he has left the department, but God knows better. God decided that the time that He has given Professor Green to be on this earth had to come to an end. I didn't believe it when it happened, even though I knew how ill he was. It was so difficult to take him to or comply with the doctor's instructions. I don't know how many times did I turn him away to say, Professor Green, go home. The doctor hasn't released you. And he'll say, but I'm feeling better. I said, Prof, we have to comply with what doctors, you're not a doctor, you're a patient. He kept on coming and forgetting he's a patient. He wanted to work. And he'll say, Dr. Matebula, can't I work from home? I said, if the doctor doesn't say you must work from home, it means you're ill. And I being a clinical person, I could see the kind of conditions that he had, that the prof is truly ill. But he doesn't want to give up. He would like to, he kept in touch with his department, and he kept himself informed of what is happening in the faculty, as well as the head of school. He wanted to be up to date, and he will, even when he's in ICU, he will drop me a message, Dr. Matebula, I'm admitted in the ICU. Doctor, and he's in ICU in bed, but the most statement that he told me the last time we met was that, you know how painful it is, doctor, to hear people discussing about you on whether to withdraw the life support or to continue. But then here I am. I would come out and wonder what's going to happen to me ultimately, because it means I'm very ill. Initially, he wasn't accepting that he's ill. That's why he would suddenly, I have the prof's sick leave form from the doctor, the letter, and then the next thing I see Prof coming into my office, and I would say, go home, Prof. You are not yet supposed to be here. And he said, but I don't feel that ill, and I would see that he's truly ill. But it comes with commitment and dedication to have such a person. And when I was told that now I am going to be without Professor Green, I felt it's one thing as a leader to lose a staff member, but it's even more difficult to lose a staff member who's a leader, and a staff member who has been in the field for long. Prof has been a medical professional for 37 years and a pediatrician for 30 years. And you can imagine the amount of experience and support that one feel is losing when somebody of his caliber leaves. But I want to believe that, yes, we have lost, us as colleagues and also us as the employer and as family, but we want to believe that time had arrived, and we want to believe that God shall provide. At this point in time, it's still very gloomy. As a result, we haven't even advertised the vacancy because it's still unbelievable that there is this vacancy that is permanent, that Prof is not there. But I think it is well with our soul. God has seen that Prof has run his race, and now what is left is for us to take over from his legacy and continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Matebula. Okay. Professor Steenkamp is going to give us a few words next. She is the Deputy Dean of Education in the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Pretoria.
distinguished guests, present here and online, members of the academic fraternity, vice-chancellors, deputy vice-chancellors, deans, heads of department, staff, students, distinguished members of the medical fraternity and organizations, distinguished guests, family, friends, and the Green family. As Prof. Kakaza has said, I am the Deputy Dean of Teaching and Learning and currently the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences. I deliver this speech on behalf of the faculty, and I acknowledge the Dean, Professor De Jager, in his absentia. It is indeed tough to give the speech because Professor Robin Green was not only a colleague, but was a stalwart of our fraternity and a much-loved educator. I think I cannot really say much more than what the people before me have said. Prof. Smuts and Prof. Kakaza have given you a real tribute to Prof. Robin Green, and please forgive me for repeating some of his achievements. The Faculty of Health Sciences learned with great shock and sadness of the passing away of Prof. Green, who was the head of our School of Medicine. He was also the Director of Pediatric Services at the Steve Biko Academic Hospital, Pretoria, full professor and head of the Department of Pediatrics and Child Health within the School of Medicine at the University of Pretoria. He had a dual degree, a PhD and a DSc at doctoral level, and was a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians, the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology, and the American College of Chest Physicians. He was also past president of the College of Pediatricians of South Africa and immediate past chairman of the Allergy Society of South Africa. The National Research Foundation of South Africa rated him as an established researcher specializing in pediatric pulmonology. Professor Robin Green was an accomplished academic who published 160 peer-reviewed scientific publications, edited 5 books, written 10 chapters, and given over 300 national and international lectures. He was recognized and respected voice in pediatrics and a consummate professional. We are gutted at his passing as he leaves a great void and big shoes to fill. His towering legacy will not only be in his academic excellence, but in the tireless work he did for our country, continent, and the globe, working with the most vulnerable of our population, the children. We thank the Green family, his fiancée Zoe Nell, who we have with us today, for sharing this giant of a man with us. Be comforted in knowing that his legacy lives on through the many lives he touched and the incredible mark he leaves. May the Lord strengthen you and keep you. May he shine his face upon you and wipe away your tears and comfort your hearts. We mourn with you as we bid the giant son of the soil farewell.
Thank you, Professor Steenkamp. Professor Buch from the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa would have loved to be here, but unfortunately he was unable to be with us today. So the college has sent a message which I am going to read now. Okay. So message from the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa, Professor Green. The Colleges of Medicine of South Africa, CMSA, is dedicated to promoting the highest degree of skill and efficiency in medical and dental practice and to cultivating the highest ethical standards and professional conduct, not for pecuniary profit, but for the betterment of humanity. Professor Robin Green made an enormous contribution to the CMSA and to its key function as the national examining body for medical professions in South Africa. Robin served as president of the College of Pediatricians and as a CMSA senator from 2011 to 2014. He played an immense role in regularizing subspecialty education in pediatrics in the CMSA and in South Africa. Robin's commitment to high quality education in pediatrics and childcare was unwavering. Professor Robin Green obtained his fellowship of the College of Pediatricians in 1991 and college diplomas in child health in 1990 and allergology in 2004. In addition to the numerous times he was a college examiner, he served in the prestigious role of convener of college examinations on 18 occasions and as a moderator on 7 occasions. In the spirit of voluntarism, that is the foundation of the colleges of medicine, all these contributions were made without pay. Robin was a major force for good in child health, particularly in the arenas of allergic and respiratory illness. Many pediatricians owe their success in some measure to his generosity and support. Robin will sadly be missed. Our condolences go out to his loved ones and to colleagues at the University of Pretoria and Steve Biko Academic Hospital. That is the message from the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Gabriel Nel and Ms. Mberi Chichorokisa to please come and address you on behalf of the undergraduate students and the postgraduate students.
Thanks, Joe. Great, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to convey a brief message today and to share our condolences sincerely with the Green family from the UP Registrar Group, the Pediatric Registrar Group, and with the wider community that was close to Robin, both as colleagues and as friends. I'd like to really speak primarily to Prof. Green's incredibly positive impact on pediatrics and child health, which he achieved through many various channels, but especially through his academic mentorship of registrars. I myself first engaged with Prof. Green as a final year medical student, despite me at the time being quite insignificant in the greater scene and perspective of child health. Prof. Green had at that stage allowed me the time of day to listen to and support an idea that involved a student community project in pediatrics. That brief anecdote really alludes to two very significant personal characteristics of the man that we today really truly celebrate. First, his inspiring humility that was shown throughout his career when he allowed space at the table for unknown guests to be heard simply in the name of benefiting pediatrics. The second, his initiative in creating a space where the boundaries of academics and personal love for pediatrics were allowed to meet and were allowed to thrive in that space. We as a registrar group were unfortunate to have not spent much time in his presence in the recent times due to his ill health. But despite this fact, there was a resounding respect and regard for Prof. That only existed really due to his formidable strength of character and that it seemed to help define our wonderful department. Much must and can be said of the man who in this current world and global climate was kind and Prof. Green was considered a very kind man. Kindness is really a choice, and it's a choice that takes a lot, actual immense effort to personify, and Prof. Green was able to achieve that. And we as a Reg group, we hope today that to celebrate him, we would like to emulate his characteristics, and especially that of kindness, in benefiting the greater pediatric community, one by the work that we do, but also by personifying the kindness that he was so able to do during his time as our academic mentor and as so many other people's friend and colleague. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, my fellow students, staff members within the Faculty of Health Sciences, colleagues, friends, and loved ones of Prof. Green. As was said, my name is Mberi Shorakisa. I'm currently a fifth-year medical student, and as the former chairperson of the Medical Student Committee, I'm honored to have been given this platform to speak on behalf of our student body as we remember, celebrate, and cherish the life of our dear Prof. Robin Green. In the short time I had with Prof, I got to witness a glimpse of who he was at heart. Thoughtful, sincere, kind, gentle, fun, and determined. These are just a few words that describes Prof's character, but one of the most remarkable things that I ever saw in him was his ability to be completely selfless and his fiery passion for students. Students were truly at the center of his heart, and he went out of his way to show us that. A good example of this is the role he played in our lives when the COVID-19 pandemic initially reached Southern African shores. Prof would send us daily encouraging WhatsApp messages that always started with, "My dear students," and ended with, "Much love, Rob." Go and ask any medical student on this campus what "my dear students" is, and it'll automatically bring a smile to their face as they remember the series of uplifting messages that he sent to us during a very difficult time. When we were without hope, he encouraged us to hope again. When we were overwhelmed, confused, and uncertain, he gave us clarity and encouraged us to spur on. He always encouraged us to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, to be kind to one another, and to be proud of ourselves for getting through each day. To us, Prof was more than just the chairman of the School of Medicine, and he was anything except far removed from each of our lives. He was a beacon of light in troubled times. We relied on him, we trusted in him, we trusted in his leadership, and we absolutely adored him. Prof was a man who never ceased in giving his all, and he poured his heart into everything he did. He truly cared for us, and it showed in every decision he made and the very manner in which he led the School of Medicine. My sincere hope is that he knew just how much he was adored, appreciated, and respected by his colleagues and by us, his dear students. I recently watched a movie called The Empress Club. The entire movie centers around a history teacher who is not only instilling valuable life lessons into his students, but he's also equipping his students with knowledge about the Roman Empire. What stood out to me in this movie, and I can never forget it, is when the teacher asked his students who the Emperor Shutruk Nahuntu was. The class stood completely silent, and nobody could give him an answer, because nobody knew who this emperor was. And that's precisely the point. History had forgotten him. The teacher then moved on to say that great ambition and leadership without contribution is without significance. Some go down in history for the magnificent artwork they are gifted to be able to create with the tip of their paintbrushes. Others because of the contribution to society through politics, law, and even science. Prof's contribution, not only to the field of medicine, but also to society, was to ensure that we as students were trained to the highest standard possible so that we may be trustworthy custodians of people and their health, that we may be equipped to be able to protect and improve our healthcare system, and that we may be encouraged to lead and to always strive for excellence. We as the student body and everybody who has gone through him are a product of his selfless leadership, his endless sacrifice, and his boundless love. Prof, your passing leaves behind a great pain among us, but it is comforting and heartening to know that though you are no longer with us, your legacy lives on in each one of us who you loved to the very end. There are simply no words profound enough to express the impact you have had in each of our lives or the impression that you have left on our hearts. You will be forever cherished and fondly remembered by the lives you have touched. We are thankful to have experienced your kind, gentle, and loving heart. You are sorely missed and will always, always be loved by us. Forever yours, Prof, your dear students.
Thank you very much. As a teacher, you will know that the greatest praise never comes from Dr. Matebula or from Prof. Diaga. The greatest praise is the praise that comes from the students. So thank you very much for those words. Okay. So we are now going to move to a part of the program where we are going to have a few words from a colleague and a friend, and also from another close friend. So we'll start with Professor Charles Feldman, and I will ask that as soon as Prof finishes, that Dr. Clinton van Coller please come to the podium.
So, honourable guests from the University of Pretoria and the Steve Biko Academic Hospital, Zoe Nell, loving partner of Robin Green during these very difficult last years, members of the research group who are here, and I'll talk to that in a little while. That's what my introduction should have been, because I'm representing more than just myself. Clinton van Coller, who I believe I've met on Robin's 60th birthday, who's been a lifelong friend of his, school friend of his, family, colleagues, and friends. It's with great sadness that I stand in front of you today to deliver a dedication to our dear friend and colleague, Robin Green, who passed away suddenly on the 27th of May, Friday evening, 2022, after a relatively long period of illness. Despite the fact, and many of you know this, that I've prepared and delivered many talks, lectures, and presentations over many years, this is one of the most difficult talks or dedications that I've ever had to write. I never thought I would ever have to do it. The main reason for this is that Robin and I were extremely close friends. We did many things together and spent a lot of time together. And I found it difficult to adequately convey to you in words all the attributes of Robin. The medical ones are easy, but it's difficult to put across the depth of character, kindness, love, humanity, humility, and passion that was Robin. Our very close relationship was clearly noticed by people around us, and I was strikingly reminded of this when I, not as a family member, but as a friend, was emailed, called upon in person, phoned to wish me condolences on the passing of my very dear and close friend. I first met Robin in the workplace. It was at the time he was getting his PhD, which I believe was around 2003. And the reason I became involved was because I was the chair of the Graduate Studies Committee at Wits University at the time, and all the degrees came through the chair of the Graduate Studies Committee. I'd like to point out that Robin did his PhD while in private practice, which is, he spent a time after his training before joining the University of Pretoria. This is not an easy feat to achieve, and he actually used his practice patients as subjects for a number of the studies that he did. But he truly was an academic at heart and came back into the fold soon after he got his PhD. And he started the beginning of his very successful career at the University of Pretoria, not only training pediatric specialists, but also establishing the Division of Pulmonology, which trained many fellows in pediatric pulmonology and produced many graduates, as you've heard, in allergology. He certainly was a major role player in establishing pediatric pulmonology and allergology in South Africa. As you've heard, and as I saw, Robin had amazing leadership skills, which he used successfully in his roles at the University of Pretoria, as well as leadership roles in the colleges of medicine of South Africa, College of Pediatrics of the College of Medicine, and the various medical societies in which he held office. As a leader, he was decisive, but also gentle, compassionate, and supportive of everyone, from the most senior to the most junior person, as you've already heard. And no matter how small their issue or problem was. At the University of Pretoria, he rose to the position of director and chair of the School of Medicine in 2018. And I remember him saying how he loved being the chair and director of the School of Medicine, because he was passionate in trying to find solutions for problems, no matter how big or small they were. And of course, as you've heard, we've certainly been living through difficult times, and there were many leadership skills that were needed to forge through the minefield of COVID and all the issues that there were. In short, among his many achievements, as you've heard, Robin was well published, actively supported students, both undergraduate and postgraduate, and both in the clinical setting and in terms of postgraduate degrees. He was very proud of his doctorate of science, which he got, which is a senior doctorate, and he received it from the University of Pretoria for a thesis that was a compilation of his research work over many years in airway disease, both nose and airways in the lung. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with his many other achievements, and you've certainly heard many of them again and again, which were very significant. But I don't intend to go through all of them at this stage. I'd rather like to speak about Robin, the person and friend. Robin was a truly amazing person. He never judged anybody based on their actions. I guess abiding by the saying that you should never judge anybody until you've walked a mile in their shoes. He truly was, as many people have said even today, and some of the colleagues who contacted me, that he really was the gentle giant. He was tall in stature, as you all know, making even those of us who are not vertically challenged feel rather short. But despite this, he was gentle, patient, kind, quiet-spoken, and compassionate. I cannot say that I've ever heard or saw him really talking badly about anybody or raising his temper, even when quite provoked. There were certain things that Robin really liked in life. I can't be absolutely sure in what order they were, but I chose these in random order, anticipating what Robin may have felt and may have said. And these were as follows. First of all, Zoe Nell, who was with him in his later years of his life. He was really devoted to her as she was to him. And I know she brought him much love and support during these difficult times. He literally died in her arms on that Friday evening. And I'm sure that if he knew he was about to die, this would have been how he would have wanted it to happen. The bush. Robin loved the bush. His best place on earth was in the bush. Coming as I do from a family who feel the same way, I fully understand. He particularly loved the Kruger National Park, which was his happy place. And fortunately, he and Zoe were able to spend quite a bit of time there not so long ago. He loved watching and playing golf. He was also a good golfer. He played golf from childhood. Nevertheless, and although I'm at best a mediocre golfer, I still take credit for playing with him and taking him through to his lowest 18-hole round of golf of 82 at the Margate Country Club. So you may be wondering about what and who are the research group. So it's a WhatsApp group of close friends who play golf regularly with each other. We communicate almost every week about whether we could do research that week and what time we could start the research. But what it was really about was not research, but having a quick 9 holes of golf after work, particularly in summer when you can play till relatively late in the evening. So until now, we've been a secret group, but this has now been exposed. So Robin was a keen researcher in this group, as was I, Navesh Sulal, Guy Richards, and Guy's son Grant, Gavin Miller, who's here with us, and Michael Wachowski. I hope our bosses are not listening to what I'm saying, because I guess some of us could be in a lot of trouble. Now, Robin also loved a good meal, often seafood or maybe a steak, possibly accompanied by a glass of good red wine, while the research group met and did this together every so often, just to compare notes on how the research was going. Robin and I did this more frequently because we often traveled together to the American Thoracic Society meeting in the United States on regular occasions, where he and I presented our research, proper research, during office hours only. And then we would go to one of our favorite restaurants in the evening. One of them that he particularly liked was called the Baja Bar, which was, it's a franchise in California, especially in San Diego. And San Diego is a common place where the ATS is held. It's a franchise, as I said, but a very homely restaurant, serving relatively cheap but excellent seafood. And Robin and I spent a number of evenings there over many years and looked forward to going back there on every available occasion. Robin, it's hard to believe you're no longer with us. There are so many things that you and I loved doing together that I still wanted to do again and again, and many more times. I cannot believe this will now not happen. You leave an incredible legacy that is not likely ever to be emulated. There are few people that are one of a kind, but you were just that. I love you and miss you, but I'm thankful for the time that you and I spent together, relatively short, but potentially longer than most other friends in your life. Goodbye for now, my best friend. I'm going to break protocol, if I may. Guy Richards is one of the research group's members, very avid researcher, as Gavin will attest to. He was admitted to hospital today for major surgery. He really wanted to be here, but he needed the surgery. I have spoken to his wife, and he's come out of surgery, a long haul from early this morning to about 1 o'clock. But he asked me if I could read out just a small dedication on his behalf. And so these are the words of Guy Richards, one of the researchers. Robin was an outstanding academic and administrator, having joined the academic circuit relatively late after a stint in private practice. His advance along his chosen career path was meteoric, bringing many along with him on his coattails in his search for academic excellence, which culminated in his DSc a few years ago. This side of Robin is well known. What is less so well known was his caring nature and generosity of spirit that caused him enormous stress, particularly during the pandemic. Robin felt individually responsible for all of his medical students and was at all times available to them for assistance or counseling while dealing with his own anxieties. He was not just generous with his time, he was also supportive of numerous charitable causes and never stinted when an opportunity arose to help others. He suffered some terrible tragedies and many personal challenges that he bore stoically, but scars were left behind. Thankfully, he had Zoe's support and guidance over the last years, who he loved dearly and looked to her for support during this trying time. And thank you, Zoe, for having been there. Robin was a dear friend, and many of the laughs and irritations that we shared, I suppose I should say while doing research, but he actually wrote on the golf course. And I know that we will continue to feel his presence and approval when we hit the occasional good shot. Rest in peace, Robin, my good friend. You will always be in my thoughts.
I suppose I'm privileged to be one of the persons in this room that's known Robin the longest, so I'm entitled to cry. And I will. Because he was my best friend. What you guys don't understand is that he was a giant now, but he was a young, skinny little kid, tall, always looked down on me at school, and I was a very shy boy at school as well. And we kind of had a kinship when we met at school because we were the same. He wrote in the front of one of his books how he always expected to be bullied at school, and he was surprised that he wasn't. And I suppose that's, I came from Natal up into the Transvaal in those days, and then we kind of hit it off. Unfortunately, I didn't know him in primary school, but I knew him in high school. And he was a damn fine academic then as well. Nothing changed, that I can tell you. But we were kind of nerds, and that's okay. Charles, I don't know when his golf improved, but his golf with me was terrible. I still have this picture of him at Rijmsig. We joined Rijmsig together, and we were playing. We were desperately trying to get our handicaps down, and we weren't in the position to afford golf balls even then. And this ball rolled into the water trap at Rijmsig, and I said to him, "Rob, don't worry, I bought a whole bag." When we came in, and he said, "That was a Titleist." And he pulled his bag along behind him, and he gently went down to get the ball, which had rolled down quite a steep hill, and his bag followed him in and nudged him into the water, and it was very deep, right up to his armpits. And he got out of that water, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't say anything." And I haven't since then, but I am now, my friend. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I grew up in Berea, and he was in the Lani side of town on Auckland Park. So I would walk through Hillbrow to his place because his mother made better lunch than my mother. And we basically played the streets. We roamed the streets together as friends, and we formed a very strong bond. There were two other friends. They're online at the moment. Neil Barrington, he's in Winnipeg, neurosurgeon. Bucky was his nickname to Rob. And then Eric Verapol's in Sydney at the moment. He's a geophysicist. And we were the four amigos, and we did some interesting things in youth. But by and large, we were happy. And we were happy because we had a fantastic friendship. The debate, as we got towards matric, was medicine. We were academically able to choose, and we were lucky. Robin had no doubt. There was not an ounce of doubt. I liked people less, so I went into veterinary science. And when I see Robin's achievements, I'm glad, because there's not a chance that I could have ever emulated the unbelievable academic record that man achieved. For those in this room who understand academia, they're well aware of it. For those that aren't, Robin's CV was phenomenal. And there's one word that I've been hearing consistently that describes the man, is despite all his amazing accolades and his abilities to achieve and to lead, he was kind and he was gentle. The other thing, Robin never had any children, and it was something that he wanted. There were many reasons for that, none of them really in his control. So it's very clear what happened to him, for me anyway, is that his students became his children, and he was their father. And he loved all children. It used to irritate me because he would bend down everywhere and coo like an American sitcom, but it was genuine, and scratch little children under the chin. And it baffled me at the time. It really baffled me. He's the godfather of my two children, Hannah and Ross. And he's definitely a surrogate parent to the school. And it was amazing to listen to some of his colleagues speaking so highly of him in how selfless he was. And that is exactly how he was as a friend. He was selfless. COVID was tough for everyone, for the country, for the world. It cost people their lives, literally, and it cost people their mental health. And it cost Rob dearly. And the reason it cost Rob dearly was he was devastated at how his students and patients were suffering potentially, and what he could do to alleviate that. And it was definitely self-sacrificing, because it cost him, in terms of health and mental health, in an unbelievable way. And so he should be married to you. So now's the time to say goodbye to my friend. Cicero, the great Roman senator, said, "The life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living." And George Eliot said, "The dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them." So you'll remain in my consciousness, Rob, with a great ragged hole of grief in my heart. And I know you feel the same. Farewell, my friend. Rest peacefully.
Thank you very much for those kind words. It was nice to hear a different side of Prof. Green, because we always know the academic. And as I said, he was a chairperson when I was in ESCO, so I know the person who pushed me around. Okay. So if there is anyone in the room who would like to say a few words, we have time. You can please come forward. Okay, we have somebody.
Sorry. I'm Carla Hals. I'm privileged to be one of the fellows. I'm going to talk about nice things. Robin couldn't dance. He just couldn't. Thank you. I probably met Robin when I was quite young. I didn't realize it. My brother's got cystic fibrosis, and he was working in now Charlotte Maxeke. And my mother actually said to me, she remembered him when she met him eventually. He was the only person who did the children's blood pressure in the clinic. And I often went to the clinic with my mom. And little did I know, I would meet him in 2008 for the first time. He was like a second dad to me. I made him cry. I didn't do that. I always challenged him. But the nice thing was he gave us the opportunity to challenge him. He didn't argue with you. He actually sat you down and we could have a conversation about opinions. The other thing is he taught me the great love of whiskey. May it be Johnny Walker Blue, I don't agree. But I would never forget the first time I tasted it, I thought it was vile. But Robin kept on persisting and he said, just keep on trying, you'll enjoy it. And truth pop, I did. And then we graduated. It was a few of us. It was Teshni, Umulemu, Rafilwe, Debbie White, Marion Kofi, eventually Salome came, and all the rest behind us. And at my graduation, he said to my mother, she always keeps me on my toes. But he doesn't know, but he kept us on our toes. He always pushed us. He enjoyed putting a little carrot in front of our noses and just tempting us to go a little bit further than what we could. I could always phone Robin if I had a question. And then he would say, but why you ask me? I haven't done this for so long. You know better than me. And I'm thinking, but Robin, I can phone you. You're my soundboard. I don't have a soundboard anymore. And that's tough. I could even sit down with him and chat about my love life, the non-existing one at that stage. And funny enough, when I got married, we went to Scotland to taste whiskey. So the whiskey actually worked. He did convince me eventually. And the nice thing about Robin is he always got a little bit of his personality when you got to know him. So Creedence, Clearwater Revival, was one of his favorites. And, yeah, but he couldn't dance. That's the only thing I want to say.
I'm Andre van die Kerk. I have the privilege, and I really mean it, to be on a part-time basis at least, working at the pulmonology, pediatric pulmonology, allergology, and inborn errors of immunity service that Robin spearheaded and established at Steve Biko Hospital. And by the way, the service received world allergy organization recognition recently. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to put up my hand on behalf of the Allergy Society of South Africa. Robin served on the ExCom of the Allergy Society of South Africa for a long time, and he was also our past chairman. And during the week, I saw a tweet from Mr. Edward Kieswetter, and he said, kindness is the highest form of intelligence. And that also we really enjoyed his kindness, and we also saw that intelligence. He was really an intelligent leader, strategic, proactive, and he steered also in a direction that contributed to it being one of the most respected medical organizations in South Africa. And at the same time, we also enjoyed his intelligence at an academic level. He contributed at all levels and on different also platforms. He was a leader, contributor to our journal, our congresses. He was a leader in terms of the formulation of clinical guidelines for South Africa and in asthma and allergic rhinitis. And we also had the opportunity to enjoy him as a teacher, as a real intelligent teacher. And you know, they say an average teacher will tell, a good teacher will explain, a very good teacher will demonstrate, and a superior teacher will inspire. And that's really what he did. You heard it from Carla and you heard it from everybody this afternoon. He really inspired. And Zoe, I want to assure you, his legacy will live on at the Allergy Society of South Africa. Thanks.
Pardon me for being up here a second time. I've been asked in her absence, Dr. Larisha Kupasamy has a message that I'd like to read on her behalf. Professor Robin Green, I met at my registrar interview a couple of years ago. Never did I know that he would become someone so important to me, someone who I admired and looked up to. In a time when I felt lost and didn't believe in myself, he stood at my side and supported me, and he was the giant shoulders I could stand on. He was always kind and generous, and no matter what small thing I achieved or did in his unit, he would always acknowledge it and thank me. I became part of his pulmonology team in 2018. From that day onwards, our relationship became more like a father-daughter relationship, which our team can attest to. Someone who I looked up to for advice, and someone who sometimes I had to instruct to stay home when he wasn't well enough, but still insisted to do around, like I do with my own dad. Prof. Green taught me so much, especially how to manage the ICU. His love for research is something all of us admired, and no matter what, he just seemed to get things done. We shared many conversations about personal things in our own lives, always cheering each other on. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him, but he did so much for so many other colleagues' careers without expecting anything in return. Be generous, as he would say. He shared in the joys and successes as in my own life, especially the day I graduated, which I felt like it was his own achievement too. Some days are harder than others, as he was always there on the side cheering me on. I will miss you dearly, Prof, as you became someone so important and dear to me. The best way to honor you is to continue to be kind and generous as you taught us to be, and keep a lookout for Zoe, as I think you would like. I will miss your emails, calls, but mostly I will miss your guidance. Till we meet again. Love, your little girlie, Lou.
There is still a bit of time if there's anyone else who would like to come forward. Okay, if there is no one coming forward, it's the time for me to thank all of you for coming to join us as we celebrate the life of Professor Green. I'm thanking those who have come into the hall, and I'm also thanking those who have joined us virtually. But I would most of all like to thank his family for joining us today. Thank you very much, Ms. Zoe Nell, for joining us today. And we would like to thank his family also for allowing him to be part of our family as well. We've known him for so long, for so many years, and it took a while for us to realize how much driving he was doing to come to Steve Biko Academic Hospital every day. And we appreciate that a lot for allowing him to sit in that traffic, because it meant that going home was also, it took much longer for him to get home as well. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to thank Professor Steenkamp as well for being here with us today, Dr. Matebula, Professor Flavia, who's our Deputy Dean of Stakeholders, even though she didn't have a podium today, but she is here with us today, and she worked closely with Professor Green. We have now come to the end of the program, and please join us in the foyer for some refreshments after this. Thank you very much.